If someone had told me that my entire world would crumble in a single night, I wouldn't have believed them. Because, by all appearances, I had the perfect life. That morning, I stood in my sunlit kitchen, the smell of freshly brewed coffee filling the air as I laid out breakfast for my husband Daniel. Through the massive windows of our high-rise condo, I could see the Charles River shimmering under the Boston morning light. Daniel adjusted his tie in the reflection of the stainless steel fridge, looking effortlessly polished in his navy suit. He was the kind of man who exuded quiet confidence, charismatic, ambitious, always in control. "Busy day ahead?" I asked, placing a plate of avocado toast and organic yogurt on the counter. He nodded, offering me a gentle smile. "Presentation for the downtown redevelopment project. But I should be home by evening." I had heard those words before, and I had believed them. Because I trusted him. I smiled back, unaware that within hours, everything I knew about my marriage, about my family, would unravel into a nightmare I never saw coming. Vanessa had always been trouble. My older sister was beautiful in the way that made people stop and stare. Tall, with waves of honey blonde hair and a model's poise, she carried herself like the world owed her something. And, for most of her life, the world had agreed. She had expensive taste, Louis Vuitton bags, Chanel dresses, Baccarat perfume, and an addiction to gambling that she pretended wasn't a problem. It was a problem, because when she ran out of her own money, she had no problem taking from others, including my mother. For years, I had watched Vanessa manipulate her way through life, draining my mother's retirement savings without a second thought. And yet, somehow, I had convinced myself that she couldn't touch me, that my life with Daniel, our marriage, our home, was untouchable. I was wrong. That evening, I left work early, my heart light with anticipation. I had everything planned: dinner reservations at the Charles Hotel, a bouquet of lilies, Daniel's favorite, and a carefully wrapped Omega watch I had spent weeks picking out. It was his birthday, and I wanted it to be perfect. But as soon as I stepped into the parking lot of our condo, unease prickled at the back of my neck. There were too many cars. Luxury cars lined the spaces: BMWs, Mercedes, a sleek black Jaguar, and then, parked front and center like a trophy, a flashy pink Porsche. Vanessa's. I stopped cold. Why the hell was she here? A heavy feeling settled in my stomach as I walked toward the elevator, my fingers tightening around the wrapped gift in my hands. Something was wrong. When the doors slid open, laughter spilled into the hallway. Loud, carefree, celebratory. A party. For Daniel. A party I hadn't planned. My pulse pounded in my ears as I reached for my key, but before I could slide it into the lock, I heard it. Vanessa's voice. "Oh, come on, Danny. Real estate must be really profitable these days." Danny. She was calling him Danny. I gripped the doorknob so hard my knuckles went white. And then came the laughter, the kind of laughter that made my stomach drop. Hers. Sultry, flirtatious, triumphant. I shoved the door open, stepping inside, and my world stopped. 20 people. 20 people were gathered in my living room, holding champagne glasses, eating from catered trays, chatting like they belonged there. Like this wasn't my home. My mother stood near the fireplace laughing with her church friends, her pearl necklace gleaming under the warm lighting. Vanessa was in the center of it all, draped against Daniel's side, a glass of wine in her perfectly manicured hand. She was wearing red, not just any red, deep, sinful, attention-commanding, and around her neck sparkled my mother's heirloom diamond necklace. Daniel, my husband, stood beside her, his tie loosened, his stance relaxed, his expression unreadable. My sister turned at the exact moment I stepped inside, and instead of guilt, instead of shock, she smirked. And then, as if twisting the knife, she leaned in and kissed his cheek, lingering, possessive. When she pulled away, I saw the red stain of her lipstick on his skin. My hands went numb. "Oops," Vanessa purred, feigning innocence. "Busted." The room went silent. I felt my mother's eyes on me, assessing, calculating. Then she smiled, smoothing down her Chanel tweed jacket. "Oh, Emma, how unusual for you to come home early." That was it. No apology, no embarrassment, Just a quiet acknowledgement that I wasn't supposed to be here yet. This was planned. My mother's hand rested on Vanessa's shoulder, a silent show of loyalty. And then, in a voice so calm it sent ice down my spine, she said, "Sign the divorce papers and keep quiet." My breath caught. I had been played, betrayed, discarded. I felt something slip from my fingers. The Omega watch, the carefully wrapped gift. It hit the marble floor with a hollow thud. Vanessa's smirk widened. Daniel looked away. Coward. The weight of it all crushed me, pressing against my ribs, threatening to choke me. I turned, walking toward the door on numb legs. Daniel's voice broke through the silence. "Emma, wait." I didn't stop. Couldn't. My world had ended. But as I stepped into the cold Boston night, one thought burned in my mind. This wasn't over. This was just the beginning. I walked out into the cold Cambridge night, my heels clicking against the pavement, my breath visible in the crisp air. My vision blurred, but not from tears. No, those had dried up the second I saw Vanessa's smug face. I wasn't broken. I wasn't defeated. I was furious. My phone felt heavy in my hand as I scrolled through my contacts, hovering over a name I never thought I'd need to call. Carol, Daniel's mother. The only person in that family who had ever treated me like I mattered. I hit call. She picked up on the second ring. "Emma?" My voice was steady, calm. "Do you have a moment?" A pause. Then, the quiet authority in her voice. "Come to the Charles Hotel. We'll talk." And just like that, the war had begun. The suite at the Charles Hotel was bathed in warm, golden light when I arrived. Carol sat by the window, an untouched cup of tea in front of her, watching the city lights twinkle against the water. She turned to me the moment I stepped inside, taking in my disheveled state. "Tell me everything." I did. I told her about the party, about Vanessa's shameless display, about my mother's cold, calculated order to sign the divorce papers. When I finished, Carol exhaled slowly, swirling the tea in her cup. "So that's how it is." She wasn't surprised, not at all, because Carol had known. She reached into the drawer of the ornate wooden desk beside her and pulled out a thick folder. When she placed it in front of me, my stomach twisted. "I had my suspicions about Vanessa," she said, tapping a manicured nail against the cover. "So I did some digging." I hesitated before opening it, but when I did, my breath caught in my throat. Vanessa's gambling debts, bank statements, transactions made from accounts that weren't hers, and then, at the bottom of the stack, a document with Daniel's signature. My hands shook as I read it. It was a financial agreement dated 3 months ago. Daniel had been paying off Vanessa's debts. With our money, my world tilted. Carol's voice cut through the haze. "I assume you had no idea." I gritted my teeth. "No." She leaned back, studying me. "Then let me be clear, Emma. This isn't just a betrayal. This is a calculated attack. Vanessa wants your life, and she's not the only one." I looked up, my chest tightening. "What do you mean?" Carol's expression darkened. "Your mother. She's not just enabling Vanessa. She's actively working against you." A fresh wave of nausea rolled over me. "Why?" "I'm her daughter." Carol's lips pressed into a thin line. "Because, my dear, in her eyes, Vanessa is her golden child, and you're the one she resents. You built a life on your own without her help. That threatens her." I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Vanessa, my mother, Daniel, they had all been in on it. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a coup. Carol's voice softened. "Now, you have 2 choices. You can sign those divorce papers and walk away quietly. Let them have everything." She leaned forward, her gaze sharp. "Or you can fight." I lifted my head. "How?" Carol smiled, and for the first time that night, I saw something I hadn't expected. Satisfaction. She wanted this. She wanted revenge just as much as I did, and she knew exactly how to deliver it. The plan was simple. Destroy Vanessa. Destroy my mother. Destroy Daniel. But first, I had to set the trap. Carol's network was vast, her influence untouchable. She made a few calls, pulled a few strings, and by the end of the week, we had everything we needed. The first strike? The church. Sunday morning, I walked into First Church of Cambridge like nothing had happened. My mother was already seated in the front row, Vanessa beside her, the diamond necklace still hanging around her neck like a trophy. I took my seat. Carol stood smoothing down her tailored coat and addressed the congregation. "I have an important announcement." Heads turned. My mother straightened. "It has come to my attention that Dorothy Peterson has been misappropriating church charity funds." Gasps. My mother's face turned ashen. "Furthermore," Carol continued, "we have discovered that these funds were used to cover the gambling debts of her eldest daughter, Vanessa Peterson." Vanessa went rigid. My mother clutched her Bible with trembling hands. "The evidence has already been submitted to the church council," Carol finished smoothly. Silence. Then the whispers started. "I always wondered where the money was going. Vanessa has always been reckless, but this... she's ruined her own mother." My mother turned to Vanessa, her face twisted with panic. "You said you took care of it." "I thought I did," Vanessa hissed. "It was over." Within a week, invitations to charity events were rescinded. My mother was quietly removed from every committee she had ever been on, and Vanessa. Her creditors came knocking. Vanessa's downfall was swift. Her apartment seized, her car gone, her bank accounts frozen. She called me, her voice shaking. "Emma, please, I made a mistake. I let it ring." She left a voicemail, desperate and breathless. "You can't let them do this to me. I'm your sister." I deleted it. By the end of the month, she was bankrupt, her designer clothes sold off piece by piece. My mother, once the queen of high society, was forced to retreat into the shadows. And Daniel. Oh, he wasn't safe either. Daniel came crawling back. He showed up at my new house, a beautiful home in Brattle Street that Carol had arranged for me. His suit was wrinkled, his tie undone. He looked like a man who had lost everything, and he had. "Emma, I opened the door just enough for him to see my face, and then I slammed it shut. A year passed. I moved on. One spring morning, I sat on the terrace, my hand resting on my stomach, the small swell beneath my dress a secret I had yet to share. Carol looked at me, sharp as ever. "He'll never know, will he?" I smiled, shaking my head. No. For the first time in my life, I was free. And Vanessa, my mother, Daniel, they were nothing more than ghosts of a past I had left behind. Because I had won. And this time, the story was mine to tell.